The Roman Pantheon stands beneath the open sky without a single crack, completely unbothered by 2,000 years of earthquakes, floods, fires, and the relentless march of time. If you walk inside this monumental structure today, you are immediately struck by an incredible coolness and the absolute crushing weight of stone that has watched empires rise, fall, and turn to dust. Raindrops fall lazily through the famous oculus, the massive 30-foot opening right at the center of the dome, yet 2 millennia of water ingress have failed to compromise the building's foundation. Now contrast that with a modern reinforced concrete bridge built with the absolute pinnacle of our technology, designed by supercomputers and laid out with laser precision. Within 15 to 20 years, that modern bridge will start to crumble, streaked with ugly rust stains and deep structural fissures, demanding millions of dollars from taxpayers just for routine maintenance to keep it from collapsing. For decades, mainstream scientists and engineers did little more than shrug, claiming in textbooks that the secret recipe of the ancients was mysteriously lost to the Dark Ages, leaving us marooned in a fragile, temporary present. But is that really the truth? Or is the massive global construction lobby simply realizing that it is incredibly unprofitable to build things that never need to be rebuilt? Let's look at the reality of the world we live in without the polite corporate filters. We are trapped in a global era of planned obsolescence, and this cynical business model goes far beyond the smartphones that start lagging the moment a new model drops, or the kitchen appliances that die the exact week their warranty expires. This calculated decay has infected the very foundations of our civilization, the massive infrastructure projects where trillions of dollars are locked away. To truly understand how we were conditioned to pay a perpetual tax for a disposable world, we have to take a deep, unfiltered dive into history, chemistry, and the hidden economics of construction. We need to expose exactly why a technology capable of outliving entire civilizations was systematically erased from modern engineering and replaced with a material designed to self-destruct. If you take a walk through any modern metropolis today, from New York to Tokyo, you are looking at billions of tons of a dull gray substance that we are told is the peak of human ingenuity: Portland cement. This material was patented in the first half of the 19th century by an English bricklayer named Joseph Aston, who named it simply because the resulting artificial stone resembled the natural limestone quarried on the Isle of Portland. The technology conquered the planet with terrifying speed. And why wouldn't it? The answer is incredibly basic: speed and instant gratification. Portland cement cures exceptionally fast, it is highly efficient to manufacture on an industrial scale, and it allows developers to throw up faceless high-rises and sprawling highways in a matter of months, generating astronomical upfront profits for construction tycoons. But beneath this triumph of industrial progress lies a fatal vulnerability that major corporations carefully omit from their glossy promotional campaigns. Modern concrete has immense compressive strength, meaning it can support incredible weight pressing down on it, but it is utterly helpless and brittle when subjected to tension or bending forces. Under the weight of heavy traffic, the vibrations of the city, or the slightest shift in the soil beneath it, modern concrete cracks almost instantly. To bypass this flaw, engineers made a deal with the devil. They began burying steel rebar inside the concrete, creating what we now know as reinforced concrete. At first glance, it looked like a perfect marriage of materials. The concrete protects the steel from the elements, and the steel absorbs all the tensile stresses. But this exact innovation is what started an invisible, completely irreversible countdown for every single modern structure around you. No matter how tightly you pour a modern concrete mix, microscopic pores and hairline fractures inevitably develop over time due to seasonal temperature swings. Through these tiny pathways, moisture, oxygen, and atmospheric carbon dioxide slowly but surely crawl into the core of the monolith. Sooner or later, they reach the steel heart of the structure, triggering a destructive sequence that specialists call carbonation, or more bluntly, concrete cancer. The steel inside the stone begins to rust, and if you remember basic school chemistry, you know that when metal corrodes, it expands. It doesn't just grow a little bit, Rusting steel can expand up to 6 times its original volume. Confined inside the rigid, unforgiving space of dense concrete, that expanding rebar exerts a massive, explosive internal pressure. It literally bombards the building from the inside out, fracturing the gray stone into fragments. Massive sheets of concrete begin to delaminate and slough off, exposing bleeding, corroded iron rods. Bridges begin to sag dangerously, and multi-lane highways transform into a patchwork of potholes. The modern construction industry has essentially locked itself into a permanent, exhausting war of attrition against the laws of physics, a war that humanity loses every single day while burning through billions of dollars on cosmetic fixes, temporary patches, and endless reconstructions. Now let us completely wipe that image of urban decay from our minds and travel back 2,000 years to the height of the Roman Empire. The ancient builders had no understanding of material science in its modern, high-tech definition. They had no supercomputers to model structural loads, no hydraulic excavators, and no advanced chemical laboratories. Yet their maritime harbors, massive breakwaters, colossal defensive walls, and towering aqueducts still stand today as if nothing happened. Even more staggering is the fact that many Roman piers have been completely submerged in harsh, volatile seawater for over 2,000 years, taking the full, unrelenting beating of ocean waves day in and day out. According to the dogmas of modern engineering, this highly aggressive chemical environment should have dissolved them into mush before the first millennium even arrived. But they didn't just survive, they actually grew stronger over time. Look at the markets of Trajan in Rome, a massive, incredibly complex, multi-level commercial center built entirely out of ancient concrete without a single piece of metal reinforcement inside its walls. Or look once again at the breathtaking dome of the Pantheon. It weighs over 4,500 tons, and it was cast as a single, solid piece of unreinforced concrete. According to the calculations of modern engineers, this dome should have catastrophically collapsed under its own immense weight while it was still being poured, burying the ancient craftsman alive. Yet it stands, effortlessly defying the rules written in our current textbooks. And here we hit a massive scientific paradox. While modern concrete degrades, ages, and loses its structural integrity with every passing year, ancient Roman concrete possesses a property that sounds like absolute magic, or a concept ripped straight from a science fiction novel. It knows how to heal its own wounds, utilizing the passage of centuries not as an enemy, but as its greatest ally in becoming more solid and resilient. For generations, the mainstream academic establishment scrambled to find a comfortable, convenient explanation for this phenomenon, one that wouldn't disrupt the highly profitable authority of modern cement monopolies. For a very long time, the dominant theory asserted that the entire secret rested solely on a unique volcanic ash found near the town of Pozzuoli near Naples, known as pozzolana. The Romans mixed this ash into their mortars instead of standard sand. Historians and engineers argued in unison that this was a pure freak accident of geography. They claimed the Romans just happened to be born next to a magical volcano, and that their cement was a one-time gift of nature that could never be replicated anywhere else on Earth, where volcanoes didn't share that exact chemical fingerprint. This myth was incredibly convenient for protecting the status quo. It allowed corporate giants to throw up their hands and say that, because we don't have access to ancient Roman volcanoes, you have no choice but to keep buying our fragile Portland cement and paying to fix it every 10 years. However, this comfortable corporate fairy tale began to fall apart when an interdisciplinary team of researchers from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, led by Professor Admir Masic, decided to look closer. They threw out the blind faith of old textbooks and subjected samples of ancient Roman concrete to the full force of modern analytical chemistry and high-resolution microscopy. They focused heavily on a strange detail that every single archaeologist had noticed for a century, but routinely dismissed as a sign of primitive, careless work. If you look at the internal structure of Roman concrete, it is completely riddled with tiny, millimeter-sized chunks of bright white material. For over 100 years, academic experts confidently claimed that these white spots were just evidence of poor mixing. They argued that the slaves working on the imperial construction sites were simply lazy or rushed, leaving unblended lumps of lime scattered throughout the mortar. But you have to possess a truly staggering level of modern arrogance to look at masters whose amphitheaters, roads, and aqueducts have survived 2 millennia and conclude that they were just bad at mixing cement, especially when our own perfectly smooth machine-blended walls start cracking before the paint is even dry. Professor Masish and his team saw right through this high-minded dogma. They asked a basic, logical question. If the Romans demonstrated near impossible, obsessive precision in their geometry, their architecture, their compass-aligned roads, and their handling of massive granite blocks, why would they make the exact same stupid mistake when mixing basic cement for hundreds of years? Why are these white lumps present in every single sample of Roman concrete across the entirety of the vast empire, from the blistering deserts of North Africa to the rainy hills of Britain? To crack this puzzle, the researchers ran a high-precision chemical analysis on these mysterious white inclusions, known scientifically as lime clasts. They utilized Raman spectroscopy and electron microscopy at an incredible resolution. The data they uncovered sent shockwaves through the scientific community. It turned out that these white chunks were not a defect at all. They were the absolute core of the technology, the central secret ingredient deliberately engineered to act as a high-tech, passive self-healing system for the entire building. The analysis revealed that when preparing the mixture, the ancient Romans did not use slaked lime that had been pre-mixed with water, which is the standard practice today and what old historical theories took for granted. Instead, they took quicklime calcium oxide and added it directly to the dry mix of volcanic ash and minerals, triggering a process known today as hot mixing. When water was finally introduced to this volatile combination, it unleashed a massive, roaring exothermic chemical reaction. The entire mixture literally boiled, screaming up to temperatures well over 80 to 90 degrees Celsius. This extreme thermal spike completely altered the internal environment and properties of the resulting stone. The intense heat didn't just accelerate the setting time, allowing the Romans to build their infrastructure at breakneck speed, but it also caused the formation of microscopic, brittle reservoirs filled with highly concentrated, easily dissolvable forms of calcium. Those supposedly accidental white lime clasts were actually millions of tiny high-grade medical kits evenly distributed throughout every cubic inch of the structure. Let's break down exactly how this stunning, eternal magic of self-healing operates when the building collides with the brutal realities of the physical world. Imagine that a powerful earthquake strikes, or the ground shifts beneath an ancient wall, or a brutal winter freeze creates massive structural stress. A crack opens up in the Roman stone. In our modern world, a crack is a death sentence. It is the beginning of the end. Water gets in, the rebar rusts, and the building enters a terminal decline. But in Roman concrete, water instantly transforms from a deadly enemy into the ultimate catalyst for life. As moisture begins to seep deep into the newly formed fracture, it inevitably collides with one of those millions of lime clasts. The moment the water touches the white lump, it instantly dissolves the concentrated calcium stored inside. This calcium-saturated liquid, driven by capillary action, begins to flood the entire space of the crack, acting exactly like organic blood rushing to a wound on a living body. From there, this saturated solution enters an active chemical reaction with the surrounding volcanic ash and the carbon dioxide naturally present in the water and air. The calcium crystallizes, morphing into a solid, unyielding layer of calcium carbonate, which is essentially pure, structural limestone. Within a matter of days, the crack literally seals its own wounds on a molecular level, completely blocking any further moisture from penetrating deeper into the building and cutting off even the theoretical possibility of structural failure. This is not the dead, cold, static rock we are used to. Roman concrete is a dynamic, interactive, living material system that responds actively to mechanical trauma. While modern concrete inevitably weakens, ages and crumbles under the stress of erosion and time, Roman concrete utilizes time, load, and damage to become tighter, more unified, and vastly more durable. This brings us to a deeply necessary, uncomfortable question that every critical thinker has to ask. If this technology is so completely brilliant, if scientists at MIT have experimentally proven its flawless efficiency by recreating the Roman recipe in a lab and watching cracks heal entirely in less than 2 weeks, why aren't we using it everywhere? Why are our modern cities still being poured out of fragile, crumbling Portland cement? The answer has absolutely nothing to do with science, chemistry, or engineering limitations. It belongs entirely to the realm of cynical macroeconomic interests and corporate survival. Let's step back for a moment and look at the world through the eyes of a billionaire CEO ruling over a transnational construction conglomerate or a global cement monopoly. Your entire multi-billion-dollar business model, which delivers massive, predictable dividends to your shareholders year after year, is built entirely on the concept of continuous, cyclical capital turnover. You desperately need modern cities to require constant expansion. You need asphalt to wear out every few seasons. You need bridges, overpasses, and transit hubs to demand massive, budget-destroying reconstructions every 25 years. It is an absolute goldmine that guarantees construction firms an endless stream of government contracts, steady employment for millions of voters, and an unbreakable claim on public subsidies. If an open-source, easily manufactured material hits the global market tomorrow, a material you pour exactly once, and it guaranteed to stand for 3 centuries without requiring a single dollar of maintenance or repair, the entire global construction materials industry would slam into a fatal, catastrophic crisis of overproduction. Massive factories would instantly go bankrupt. The stock prices of industrial giants would plummet to absolute zero, and career politicians would lose their favorite tool for laundering trillions of dollars under the guise of annual infrastructure repairs. Brutal global capitalism has absolutely no use for things that last forever. It requires calculated, mathematically engineered obsolescence baked directly into the blueprints before the ground is even broken. Furthermore, the ancient technology of hot mixing demands a fundamentally different relationship with labor and time. On a modern commercial construction site, time is the single most ruthless and expensive resource. A developer's goal is to throw up a 30-story tower using the cheapest possible components within 6 months, slap on a superficial layer of high-end cosmetic finish, aggressively sell the units to young families locked into 30-year mortgage slavery, and immediately wash their hands of the project. They liquidate the original corporate shell entity and dump the long-term management onto a separate homeowners association. The fact that 40 or 50 years from now, that very building will turn into a structurally compromised, hazardous shell due to the total corrosion of its internal steel core does not matter to today's developers at all. By that time, the profits will have been safely wired to offshore tax havens and spent, leaving the nightmare of a crumbling home to be dealt with by the unfortunate owners or the state. From the moment we are born, through media, advertising, and corporate propaganda, we are systematically conditioned to believe that our modern cities of brittle concrete, composite plastic, and floor-to-ceiling glass represent the absolute peak of human civilization and luxury. But if you strip away the marketing, you are looking at fragile boxes with an incredibly tight, predetermined expiration date. We willingly sign away decades of our working lives into financial servitude for the privilege of owning square footage in a structure that will begin physically degrading and losing its value long before our children even grow up. But true personal and financial sovereignty begins the exact moment you recognize these cynical rules of the game and consciously choose to stop playing along. A deep operational understanding of ancient, beautifully simple, reliable, and autonomous technologies gives a thinking person incredible leverage and freedom from institutional dependence. Understanding how eternal materials function allows you to pour a foundation for your own home, build a completely secure root cellar, erect retaining walls, or construct outbuildings on your own land using the raw laws of nature, passive thermodynamics, and built-in self-healing. It completely liberates you from the endless cycle of hiring expensive repair crews, buying overpriced imported chemical sealants, and remaining trapped by the volatility of the retail market. The ancient builders possessed a profound, quiet wisdom. They knew how to live in perfect mathematical harmony with the physics and geology of our planet, rather than trying to brutally conquer it with a raw force that ultimately turns against humanity anyway. They built for the centuries because their civilization thought in terms of future generations, not in terms of cheap quarterly corporate earnings reports. And if you start looking at the world around you with this critical, unblinking lens after watching this video, you will begin to notice with absolute horror that this exact same destructive pattern of artificial degradation and intentional quality suppression has quietly poisoned every single aspect of our daily existence. We are completely surrounded by objects designed with one single, cynical objective: to die quickly, ugly, and prematurely, forcing us to open our wallets and march right back to the store. And crumbling cement is just the tip of the iceberg. It is far from the only thing that humans used to make to last forever, only for modern industry to intentionally degrade it into cheap, disposable trash for the sake of hyper-profits. Look at how modern global fast fashion brands and luxury houses systematically conditioned us to buy jackets, bags, and shoes made out of cheap, pressed synthetic plastic, completely erasing a timeless, beautiful technology of organic, vegetable-tanned leather, and discover the exact mechanics of how they pocket billions while your belongings disintegrate after a single cleaning. That story is laid bare, with all its hidden corporate secrets, in the video that has already appeared on your screen. Click on it, and let's go down an even deeper rabbit hole.